native title? Native title is the most inferior form of land tenure under British law. Native title is not land rights. Back in the 70s when we were on the streets of the embassy now, we were saying land rights now. When we talk about land rights in them days, we weren't talking about some Mickey Mouse notion of native title. Native title gives you nothing, you know. Land rights, when we were talking about in the 70s, we were talking about real ownership of land. Land that we had control over. Land that you could say, no, you can't come in here. Or land on which you would say, okay, we want to do this with this land. And whatever you decided, because you owned it, you were able to do it. That's what self-determination is, the power to control your own affairs. And ownership of land is fundamental in terms of creating bases for people if they're to survive under the attack that sort of colonialism and imperialism has put upon us. So, native title is not land rights. Native title, the Native Title Act, when it was proclaimed, was in fact the greatest single act of dispossession of Aboriginal people in the history of Australia since Captain Cook stuck the flag in the ground. Because Native Title Act says that freehold title extinguishes native title. So, in a stroke of a pen, all of the really valuable land in Australia was excluded from claim by Aboriginal people by courtesy of the Native Title Act. And never forget, the Native Title Act is a product of negotiations between a bunch of self-appointed advisors or government-appointed advisors. A lot of people now are screaming about what John Howard's doing with his self-appointed Aboriginal advisors. The people who negotiated the Native Title Act with the Keating government were a bunch of government and self-appointed Aboriginal spokespersons. Aboriginal people did not elect them. They were unelected filth, as was once described in the Senate by somebody else in a different circumstance. They were unelected people. They did not have a mandate to negotiate. And yet they negotiated and they agreed upon, and the TV footage is there of them clicking glasses of champagne when the act was sort of, you know, went through. And everybody saying, people like Noel Pearson said that this is the greatest advance in the history of Aboriginal Australia. And in effect, what he was saying back in 1993, this is, you know, the salvation of Aboriginal people. Well, a mere 10 years down the track, he changed his tune dramatically. You know?
Well, I find like when people come up to me like they say, oh, you Aborigines, you got, look, we read in the newspaper the other day, you Aborigines got $500 million. I tell them straight away. I said, do you think we're going to get that $500 million?
If you actually add up the figures, and they're on the parliamentary website, the Australian Parliament website, Parliamentary Library, you'll find the documents there. You get out your calculator, you've got all the Aboriginal expenditure by the Commonwealth since 1972. And you get out your calculator and do what I did, add it all up. We're talking big bucks. We're talking $30,000 million. Now, that's a lot of money. In anybody's terms.
That's a lot of money.
And if it was true, if Pauline Hanson had got it right, and if it was true all that money was coming to us, you wouldn't see me and him sitting here looking like this. Hey, we'd have the flash of suits on, we'd be smoking the biggest cigars, we'd have our limousines parked out the front, and every black fella in Australia. That's enough money to make almost every black fella in Australia millionaire. But the current social indicators, the health statistics, all of the imprisonment rates, all of that, they're not much different than what they were 30 years ago when this Commonwealth money started to flow. So, not only have we been screwed, the Australian taxpayers have been screwed too. Somewhere along the line, this whole Aboriginal industry, when Pauline Hanson said, oh, this must be an Aboriginal industry, everybody jumped on and said, oh, that's racist, you're not allowed to say that. And so everybody shut up. But hey, a long time before Pauline Hanson come along, we were talking about the Aboriginal gravy trade and the Aboriginal industry. Aboriginal industry term created by us. We said it 20 years before, and it still goes on.